All right. I just want to apologize. My webcam does not work, so y'all just have to hear me. The person that okay, so the person that we're focusing on is Carter G. Woodson, also known as the father of Negro education. Who is Carter G. Woodson? He was born December 19th, 1875 in New Canton, Virginia. He was one of seven children. His father and his mother were both farmers. They had little to no education. His uncle is the one that taught him how to read and write. He actually didn't get to go to high school until later on in life because he had to work in his family farm. His education, he have a bachelor's and a master at University of Chicago and a PhD at Harvard University. He was also the second Black man to earn a PhD at Harvard University. Like I stated earlier, he was known as the father of Black History Month, and he founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, also known as ASALH. Woodson was the second African American to earn a PhD at Harvard. In 1912, he embarked on a project to make Black history both visible and respected. Woodson had a professor at Harvard, Edward Channing. He said that Negro have no history. In fact, we do have a lot of history. It was a Black person that created the stoplight. It was a Black woman that created hair products for African American women. It was a Black person that created a thermostat. So we do have a lot of history. Woodson's first book was The Education of the Negro prior to 1861. He published in 1915. Woodson created the organization to promote the study of African American history called the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History. Um, in 1926, Woodson established a Negro History Week at his school, which eventually turned into the Black History Month that we have in February. I took this quote out of the Pedagogy of the Oppressed book. Rather than being encouraged and equipped to know and respond to the concrete realities of the world, they were kept submerged in a situation in which such critical awareness and response were practical and possible, and it became clear to him that the whole education system was one of the major instruments for the maintenance of this culture of silence. Culture of silence is basically trying to silence a culture in which I think also Carter G Wood Carter G Woodson also was stating. He was saying they was trying to, not acknowledge Black history and not acknowledge that what African Americans have done in America. And I'm gonna give the pedestal to Simone.
All right, continuing with the presentation, kind of piggybacking on what Angel said about how we have like no history, which we all know that's not true. Back in those times, like in the 1920s and 30s, Woodson believed that the African Americans should know their history in order to participate intelligently in the affairs of our country. So he felt like not enough people knew like their own history to contribute anything at all. And the connection with Woodson and Ferry, they both recognized that education was not promoting cultural awareness in the classroom. So they were just being taught whatever the teachers taught them and not making the connections of how this relates to this, especially with the culture and Black history. They weren't being taught their own. And it says Woodson and Fieri acted on improving cultural awareness in the classroom. So with that, I found that you have to be aware of knowing where you came from in the past to acknowledge where you're going in the future. Next slide.
Sorry.
No, and how we connected these, we chose standard 1 and 2, which standard 1 is the learning development and standard 2 is learning environments. So as Angel mentioned before, his book that came out in 1933, The Miseducation of the Negro, was one of the best-selling books, and that's a picture of the book in the bottom. And I've actually read this book one time for one of my community college classes. So it's really a good book. Y'all should read it. And one of the quotes that stood out to me was the quote says, if you can control a man's thinking, um, you do not have to worry about his actions. When you determine what a man shall think, you do not have to concern yourself about what he will do. If you make a man feel that he is inferior, you do not have to compel him to accept the inferior status, for he will seek it himself. And for me, that one just really stuck out because being back in those times, they really didn't know anything about themselves. So they were just being taught, do this and do that, and how they were being shut down. They didn't have a say so in anything that they were doing or learning. It's either this way or, you're not going to learn what we want you to learn at all. And then the second quote that I thought was interesting was, the mere imparting of information is not education. So for us, we found that you can have all the information and education, but if you don't do anything with that and you're not educating and teaching others, then it's pointless. And the last one, the word that I found was really interesting was cultural indoctrinated, which we found was more of a religious standpoint, and it wasn't to be questioned back in those times. So the oppressors, I should say, were teaching them cultural indoctrination, and you don't question what they taught you or what you did. You just did it. You just knew this is what you learned, and you did it that way, no questions asked.
Simone, I'm staying this hard.
Hmm?
Are you gonna do this one?
I already did that one.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. I already
oh,
did
okay.
that
I'm
one.
sorry, guys. Okay, that's it. Thank
That
you.
was that was it.